You may ask, how does an empath go supernova? And many people who have narcissistic tendencies and personalities want to know this too. Here's a secret, is that even if I tell you, many people who are narcissistic or who have this personality disorder still won't know because they lack empathy, right? Empaths are beautiful people, caring people, giving people, sadly to the detriment of themselves. Usually empaths are raised by people who are narcissistic because typically these toxic parents or these toxic family members cannot get supply elsewhere. So then they birth the supply and they groom the supply and they give you the speeches of blood is thicker than water and no one will love you like your family loves you or whatever. So empaths are groomed from a very young age to be givers, right? And they're made sensitive because they almost have to read the minds of their narcissistic family members to understand what they need so then they won't be punished. Typically, empaths are abused children, right? I'm one. Many empaths are one. So they become very emotionally sensitive to the point of almost being psychic. They read body language very well, but sadly, they become codependent. A lot of empaths walk the road of codependency because they're used to the toxic environment around them. They're used to people always taking from them. They're used to people always using them and abusing them, and they always look for the best in people, even when people don't treat them the best. This is why you hear many people who claim they are narcissists or ex-narcissists or whatever. There's no such thing as an ex-narcissist. Let me just tell you this. They're doing this to go ahead and play you. Very, 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 very few people, and I've been to many therapists who are narcissistic, don't go through the rounds of therapy that they need to because the rounds of therapy can go up to 5 to 10 years. And many narcissists don't want to do that. They just don't, because that's a lot of emotional and egotistical pain that they have to go through, that they have to really delve into. They have to go back to like their childhood. They have to go back to their parents. And you know what? The typical narcissist or the typical narcissistic person does not want to deal with that kind of pain because it makes them look like they're simps, sadly. So empaths typically take this road of being a fixer, being a coddler, basically being a second parent. It's very, very rare that you will see two narcissistic people in a relationship together. It does happen, but it has to be different types of narcissists. Like one has to be more mental, one has to be more physical, or one has to kind of like play the game and let the other one have the power that they think that they have. But it's very rare because sooner or later, they're going to blow up. But it is normal to see someone who's empathic with someone who is narcissistic. It's typical behavior, and it's a toxic coupling of the giver and the taker. And usually the giver gives very, very much, and the taker takes a lot, even more than they should. So what happens when an empath, quote unquote, goes supernova, aka what happens when an empath becomes narcissistic but still has the empathy traits to know how to use this narcissism in the most vicious ways possible? Because remember, narcissistic people and empathic people are still people. We're still human beings, right? We still want love. We still want validation. We still want care. We still want to have a place where we can feel emotionally safe, even if we don't have all of the emotions that someone who was raised normally would have. This is very simple. And this is why I can tell you. It's because every person has a breaking point, narcissistic or empathic. It's just a way of knowing what is your breaking point? And a lot of empaths don't know until it happens to them, if it happens to them at all in their lifetime. I am one of those empaths where I was a fixer. I was a coddler. I was with people who were narcissistic, and I thought I could fix them. I thought if I loved them hard enough, I thought if I cared hard enough, I thought if I did the heavy labor that they didn't want to do, that they would love me, right? A lot of empaths exchange service for affection, and I was one of them. But I did have a breaking point, which I didn't realize. When I was hanging out with some friends, when I was younger, and I got to see this healthy life that they had with their family, it made me question about the life I was living, and I never forgot that as a child. Then, after going through multiple narcissistic relationships, my last one, I had a breaking point, and that was the one where I got played. Now, if you notice, I talk about getting played a lot, but here's the thing about narcissistic people who are very selfish and takers, is that once they think they have a sucker, then that's when they no longer hide their devious actions behind charm and grace and lies. They just blatantly do what they want, and they know, at least at the moment, that you won't leave them, that you'll accept their cruelty, and etc., etc. Well, I had a person I was with at the time who played me, and it really angered me, and I had to sit and think about it for a while. And so when that empath gets to that point where they are they're on their way to being a supernova, because not many do it. Not many people, I guess it's like not many people want to walk on the dark side. Not many people want to delve into the dark corners of themselves and let that animal out, right? Because here's the thing, most narcissistic people, they let that animal out, but behind that animal is a weak child on a very flimsy chain. But an empath is completely and utterly different once they go supernova, because they know all of the abuse and the tricks that very stupid narcissistic people do, but they also have the emotional intelligence to wield it with very deadly precision. An empath who goes supernova is extraordinarily dangerous. An empath that goes supernova knows all the rules of the game, but they also know the house as well, which typically narcissistic people don't know the house. So I will tell you how I became supernova. I got hurt beyond recognition, used, abused, etc. My first stage is that I just started to watch, because I wanted to confirm if it was really me. A lot of empaths take other people's wrongs and they put it on themselves like it's their fault. But when you have an empath who decides, maybe I'm not the crazy one, that's the start of someone going supernova. And as an empath, I watched the people around me, and I noticed that a lot of the conversations with the people who said they loved me the most, the narcissistic people who said they loved me the most, didn't really love me the most. Everything in the relationship was very one-sided, and it included me giving more than I was actually given. Like, I was given scraps of attention and some gifts and some love. But that didn't last at all. Then I started testing the waters, if you want to say that. Then I basically started doing some of the things that the narcissist in my lives did. I would act like I didn't hear them. Or if they asked me to do something, I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't tell them no. I mean, I wouldn't be obnoxious and confrontational. It just wouldn't get done. Or I just wouldn't answer. Or I became just as mysterious and quiet as they did. And that will start to shake them, because they're used to people kind of jumping to their whip, but they're not used to getting whipped themselves. Then I realized how stupid narcissistic people can be. Even the violent ones are very stupid, and they're very predictable. You do what they say, and you basically pat them on their head, and they'll leave you alone. They'll give you the world if you do that. That's a secret with narcissists, if you can deal with it, if you can go ahead and keep your lunch down, is that if you pat their head and make them feel validated, they'll give you the entire world, because the only thing they live for is validation. Now, if you decide that you want to be evil and you want to basically twist the screws on them as they twisted you, you dangle the validation. And this is where I want people who are empathic to understand, because you are basically going to play with a narcissist's programming. Now, some people who are therapists, and granted they are therapists and they have more credentials than me, I've just kind of been through the ringer for over 40 years. They will tell you to walk away. They will tell you, build on yourself. They will tell you all these good things. And I will say, yes, you should do that. That is healthy. That is kind. But we are human. And sometimes human beings want a taste of blood from the person that has wronged them. And so when you are supernova, you know exactly what makes a narcissist tick, because they're so obvious. They're obvious and they're sloppy. Very few narcissists are as keen and as cunning and as intelligent as you think, because they lack emotional intelligence. They know how to read a room, maybe, but they don't know how to read a person who's more emotionally intelligent than them. They don't have empathy. That's their Achilles heel. And that's where, if you do want your vengeance, you can get it through that. And the easiest way to do that is to dangle validation over their gaping maw, like the starving animals they are. How do you do that, you may ask? Simple. Very, very simple. First off, you improve yourself to the point where you are above them. Now, this is good for you too, don't get me wrong. But if you are overweight and you don't like it, get fit. Get fit to the point where you almost look like magazine level fitness. If you are broke, get to the point where you are making 6 to 7 figures and you're hanging out with other people. See, the thing about narcissists is that they are status hungry. Status hungry. Nothing can make them satiated other than knowing that they are on the level of people who are better than them. That's how they play the game. That's how they choose people who are actually very intelligent. Like, I have a video called The New Vomit. I hate to say it so crudely, but usually these people are emotional wrecks. But if they weren't emotional wrecks, they're actually pretty badass people. But the narcissist knows that they're emotional wrecks. So they will use and abuse them while using all of their good traits, right? So now that you know that, if you become better than them and you act like nothing's wrong, that's one bit. Another bit is that narcissists typically, on general, have a group of people that they use for quote unquote supply, aka attention or whatever. It could be some dude at your job. It could be some person, at your gym. It could be some person, in your neighborhood. But they always have multiple people who are a little bit weaker than them that they can draw attention and confirmation and validation from. Compliment everyone in that person's circle but them. That is going to really break them down. Even if you don't talk to them, even if they go no contact and they discard you and they ignore you, you're still going to have the same circle of friends. You're still going to have the same circle of influence. And once you get yourself to a certain level, your word and your actions will pull more weight. And so then you compliment everyone else around them but them. You give them no validation. You spread that honey thick on everybody else they know except them. That's when the shame starts. That's when those wounds start to erupt. And you know what? They'll even have new supply, aka they'll have a new spouse, they'll have a new partner, they'll have different friends or whatever, but you have set the tone that for them to get your validation, which will have more weight and more pull, they're going to have to jump through your hoops, and they will do it. They are devoid people. They literally have a black hole in their soul and they're stunted. They will jump through your hoops like a lion through a flaming hoop in a circus. They'll do it. And then they'll think in their mind, well, he or she let me close to them, so now I'm just going to wait. And they think they're like a viper, right? That they're going to wait until that weak part of you falls for their charms, because they're going to try to charm you if they're not going to be cruel. They're going to try to smear you, and if they can't break you down. But they will allow themselves to let their guard down and wait for you to be weak. But here's the thing about a supernova empath. You'll never be weak as long as you know the game. And this is going to be the last point. Here's the game. Is that narcissistic people, no matter how intelligent they are, no matter how great they are, no matter whatever, they will never change. They will never love you. And if any narcissist, no matter how internet famous, no matter how many degrees they have, if they tell you that they've changed and they want to help you, listen to them helping you, but they're not doing it for you. They're doing it for themselves. They're doing it for the praise. Once a person is narcissistic, that's it. It's cemented. But an empath can always change back to a kind and loving person. That's your gift. So that's my gift to you, empaths. Know what your breaking point is and take back your power. Don't let these people run you. They're weak, they're insignificant, and they're pathetic. And a majority of them will die alone. And I've seen many of them do so. Have a good day, empaths. Signing off.